The house seemed quieter than it ever had before, though it was filled with the muted sounds of people trying not to cry. The air smelled faintly of polish and wilted lilies, remnants from the funeral service that had ended only hours ago. The three siblings, Anna, Daniel, and Claire, sat in the living room, each lost in their own storm of grief, anger, and exhaustion. Their father's presence still lingered in every book on the shelf, every coat left in the closet, every scratch on the wooden floor, and yet the man himself was gone. What remained now was what he had left behind. The lawyer, Mr. Edwards, cleared his throat from his seat at the head of the coffee table, his briefcase resting stiffly against his leg. "Your father's last will and testament is simple," he said in his even, rehearsed tone. "The estate will be divided evenly among the three of you. The house, the savings, and the land will be shared." His words hung in the air like a verdict that should have brought closure, but instead seemed to ripple with unease. Equal division should have meant fairness, and fairness should have meant peace, but the siblings exchanged glances that suggested otherwise. Anna, the eldest, straightened her shoulders, her face carefully controlled, but her eyes flashed with unspoken doubts. Daniel leaned back, his jaw clenched, tapping his fingers restlessly on the arm of the chair. Claire, the youngest, shifted uncomfortably, wringing her hands together, as if afraid to breathe too loudly. The lawyer gathered his papers, sensing their unease but unwilling to address it. He offered his condolences once more and left, leaving behind a silence that quickly grew heavy. "Well," Anna said at last, breaking it with a brittle laugh, "at least he didn't play favorites." Her words fell flat. Daniel snorted, shaking his head. "You say that like you believe it. He played favorites his whole life. Why would death make him different?" Claire flinched, her voice barely above a whisper. "Daniel," but he waved her off, his anger simmering beneath the surface. "Don't pretend you don't know. He trusted Anna with everything. And you, Claire, you were always his soft spot. And me? I was just the disappointment he tolerated." Anna shot him a sharp look. "That's not true, isn't it?" he retorted. The argument might have spiraled further, but then Claire, desperate to stop the tension from boiling over, suggested they go through their father's study together. "We need to start sorting his things," she said quietly. "Maybe it will help." They agreed reluctantly, moving through the hallway toward the study that had always been their father's private domain. The door creaked open, revealing shelves lined with books, stacks of papers, and the faint smell of tobacco that still clung to the curtains. The desk stood at the center, its surface cluttered but oddly deliberate, as though their father had left it in careful disarray. Daniel began rifling through drawers with impatient hands, while Anna took to sorting books on the shelves. Claire lingered near the desk, her eyes scanning the piles of paper, until her fingers brushed against something unusual. Tucked beneath a stack of old invoices and letters was a leather-bound journal, worn at the edges, its pages thick and yellowed with age. She pulled it out carefully, her breath catching in her throat. "What's that?" Anna asked, turning. Claire held it up, her voice trembling. "His journal, I think." The three of them gathered around as she set it on the desk and opened it to the first page. The handwriting was unmistakable, their father's sharp, deliberate script. The early entries were mundane, notes about crops, weather, small details of the land. But as they flipped further, the tone shifted, growing more personal, more bitter. Then they reached the passage that changed everything. "I have written my will, the one they will all see. But this is the truth. Only one deserves to inherit what I built. Only one never betrayed me. She is the rightful heir. The others have already taken too much." The words sank into them like knives. Silence followed, thick and unbearable, broken only by the sound of the pages rustling in Claire's trembling hands. Daniel was the first to speak, his voice sharp. "She," he said. "She. That means one of you too." His eyes darted between Anna and Claire, suspicion already taking root. Anna's face hardened. "Don't be ridiculous. He wouldn't write something like this to stir up trouble. He was old. Maybe he wasn't thinking clearly." But even as she said it, doubt flickered in her eyes. Claire closed the journal slowly, her hands shaking. "What does it mean, betrayed?" she asked, her voice breaking. "What could he be talking about?" Daniel leaned forward, his voice low and venomous. "You know exactly what it means. We all have our secrets, don't we? Maybe now they'll finally come out." Anna's head snapped toward him, her voice icy. And what secrets would those be, Daniel? His smile was bitter, humorless. We'll see, won't we? Claire hugged the journal to her chest, her heart pounding with dread. What had begun as an even inheritance, a promise of fairness, now lay poisoned by suspicion. Their father's final words, hidden away, had turned them against each other in an instant. The will was one thing, but the journal was another, a secret testament, a weapon disguised as truth. And though none of them would admit it, each secretly wondered the same burning question. Was she me? The next morning, the house was filled with the kind of silence that doesn't come from peace, but from words unspoken, sharp and waiting to cut. None of the siblings had slept well. Anna rose early and busied herself in the kitchen, slamming cupboards louder than necessary, while Daniel sat in the living room with a cup of black coffee, staring at nothing in particular. Claire came down last, carrying the journal pressed against her chest as though afraid it might vanish if she let go. She hadn't been able to stop reading it, the words looping through her mind in endless circles. Only one never betrayed me. She, the rightful heir. They gathered again in the study, the same room that had held their discovery the night before. The morning light slanted through the blinds, throwing harsh lines across the desk where the journal lay. Claire placed it down carefully, opening to the page they had read, but Daniel grabbed it, flipping furiously through the entries. He had to mean something, Daniel muttered, his eyes scanning the pages. He doesn't write things without purpose. If he said one of us betrayed him, then he damn well meant it. Anna crossed her arms. And what exactly do you think betrayal means? A fight? A disagreement? You're twisting his words. Daniel shot her a look. Oh, come on, Anna. You were the one closest to him. If anyone had the chance to let him down, it was you. All that responsibility he piled on you, and you never once complained. But maybe you slipped. Maybe you made a choice he couldn't forgive. Anna's face flushed. Don't you dare lecture me about responsibility. You're the one who left when things got hard. You couldn't wait to get away from this house, from him. Who's to say he didn't see that as betrayal? Claire's voice shook as she tried to intervene. Stop it. Both of you. This isn't what he wanted. But Daniel ignored her. And you? He said, turning his gaze on Claire, his eyes narrowing. The little angel. Daddy's favorite. He protected you from everything, didn't he? You think you're innocent, but maybe that's exactly why he wrote this. Maybe you weren't as pure as you want us to believe. Tears welled in Claire's eyes. That's not fair. Life's not fair, Daniel snapped. Anna slammed her hand down on the desk. Enough. We're tearing each other apart over words written by a man who's not here to explain them. This journal, maybe it's nothing more than his bitterness speaking. He was angry at the end, at all of us. Why should we let it decide who we are now? But even as she spoke, her hand trembled, betraying her uncertainty. The journal wasn't nothing. It was their father's voice from beyond the grave, and none of them could ignore it. Later that day, Claire wandered into the attic, desperate for air and distance. Dust coated every surface, and the air smelled of cedar and old fabric. She moved boxes aside until she found a small wooden chest she hadn't seen before. Inside were more papers, some letters, and photographs yellowed with age. She picked up a bundle of letters tied with twine. They were addressed to their father, but signed only with initials. Her heart pounded as she opened one. The words were curt, almost accusing, speaking of broken trust, of money taken, of promises broken. The initials at the bottom, A, made her blood run cold. She knew her sister's handwriting well enough to recognize it. Anna had written these letters to their father years ago, words sharp enough to wound. She tucked the letters back quickly, her hands shaking. When she descended with the box, Anna was waiting in the kitchen. What's that? Anna asked, her voice too sharp, too quick. Claire hesitated. Old letters. I found them upstairs. Daniel appeared in the doorway, his expression darkening as he caught sight of the chest. What letters? Claire's instinct screamed at her to lie, to hide them, but the truth tumbled out before she could stop it. They're from Anna. She wrote to father, angry letters. About money, about betrayal. Daniel's eyes lit with a dangerous satisfaction as he turned to Anna. So it was you. Anna's face drained of color, but she lifted her chin defiantly. Those were years ago. I was angry, frustrated. I wanted more independence, and yes, I asked him for money he wouldn't give. But that doesn't mean I betrayed him. Daniel's voice dripped with venom. He clearly thought otherwise. You don't know what he thought, Anna snapped. And what about you, Daniel? What about the money you borrowed and never paid back? You think he didn't notice? The argument spiraled again, louder this time, voices echoing through the house like thunder. Claire hugged herself, wishing she had never brought the letters down, wishing she had burned them before anyone else could see. That night, unable to sleep, she returned to the study and reopened the journal, desperate for some clue that would absolve her of guilt. She flipped through the pages until she found another passage, written in her father's unrelenting script. They will think I mean her, or her. But the truth is not in what is said, but in what is hidden. I write for the one who will look beyond the surface. She will know who she is. Claire stared at the words, her breath catching. Look beyond the surface. Was that meant for her? Or was it a trick, another test of loyalty even after death? She didn't know, and the not knowing gnawed at her soul. By morning, the siblings barely spoke to each other, moving through the house like strangers, the journal sitting on the desk like a loaded weapon. Suspicion had lodged itself in their hearts, and every glance, every silence seemed heavier than the last. The inheritance that should have bound them together was unraveling thread by thread, and none of them could stop pulling. On the third day after finding the journal, the storm between the siblings had settled into a cold war. No shouting matches echoed through the house anymore, but the silence was worse, sharp, brittle, and waiting to shatter. Anna kept herself occupied with endless chores, polishing the already clean banisters and rearranging books in the study. Daniel spent hours in town, returning late with alcohol on his breath, muttering about old friends and debts he needed to pay. Claire stayed closest to the journal, drawn to it as though her father's ghost might whisper something only she could hear. It was during one of these quiet, uneasy afternoons that the unexpected knock came at the front door. Claire, startled, went to answer it. Standing there was Mrs. Whitaker, their father's former secretary and, in many ways, his most trusted confidant. Her gray hair was tied neatly back, her eyes sharp behind wire-rimmed glasses. She carried a small bundle of papers, tied with string, clutched tightly in her hands. "Claire," she said, her voice trembling slightly. I heard about your father. I'm so sorry, but there's something I need to give you. He left it with me." Anna and Daniel appeared almost instantly, drawn by the unfamiliar voice. Anna's eyes narrowed with suspicion. "What is that?" she asked. Mrs. Whitaker looked uncomfortable, her gaze shifting between the siblings. "Your father asked me to hold on to these. He said they weren't part of the official will, but might be important one day. He told me to give them only to the one who came looking for answers." "And you just decided to bring them now?" Daniel demanded, his voice edged with bitterness. "After we've been tearing ourselves apart?" Mrs. Whitaker bristled but stood firm. "Your father trusted me. I wasn't going to betray that trust until I was certain the time was right. And now, seeing the state of things, I believe it is." She handed the bundle directly to Claire, her hands trembling slightly as she let go. Daniel's face darkened. "Why her?" "Because she asked," Mrs. Whitaker replied simply. "She came to me yesterday in town. She wanted to know more, while the rest of you stayed silent." Anna looked sharply at Claire, betrayal flickering in her eyes. "You went behind our backs?" "I just needed answers," Claire whispered, clutching the bundle tightly. "I didn't know she would come here. I had to try." Daniel moved forward, his hand outstretched. "Let me see those." But Claire pulled back, her grip tightening. "No, not yet. I need to read them first." For a moment, Daniel looked ready to snatch them from her by force, but Mrs. Whitaker's stern gaze stopped him cold. "If your father wanted these shared, he would have said so. Let her read first. That was his wish." With that, she left, closing the door behind her. The silence that followed was suffocating. Claire carried the bundle upstairs to her room, her heart pounding, leaving Anna and Daniel fuming in the hallway. She untied the string and carefully unfolded the papers. They weren't part of the will. They weren't even financial documents. They were letters, written in her father's unmistakable hand, but never sent. The first was addressed to Anna. "You are strong, perhaps too strong for your own good. I trusted you with so much, but you pushed me away when I needed you closest. I wanted to forgive, but the distance grew, and I began to wonder if your ambition would ever let you see me not as a burden, but as a father." The second was to Daniel. "You have my fire, my defiance, but none of my restraint. You wasted what I gave you, time and time again, chasing things that never mattered. I wanted to believe you would change. Perhaps you still can. But trust, once broken, is not easily repaired. The third letter was to her. Claire, my quiet one. I protected you too much, I know. Perhaps I made you weak in the eyes of others. But you, too, disappointed me when you turned away from a truth you could not bear to face. I cannot say whether you were my comfort or my greatest mistake. Perhaps both. Claire's hands shook as she finished reading. Each letter was both a confession and an accusation, a mixture of love and disappointment. But at the bottom of the bundle was a fourth note, written differently. On plain paper, no greeting, no name. The heir is not chosen by love, nor by fairness. The heir is chosen by loyalty, even when no one is watching. One of you proved that loyalty. The others did not. Her stomach twisted. Loyalty. Who had proven loyalty? Her father's words gave nothing away, only sharpened the blade of doubt that already cut between them. That evening, unable to keep it hidden, Claire revealed the letters to Anna and Daniel in the study. The reactions were explosive. Anna read hers aloud, her voice cold and controlled, but her knuckles white around the paper. So I was too ambitious. Too strong. That's betrayal now. Daniel laughed bitterly after reading his. At least he saw me clearly. A screw-up. Wasteful. But maybe honesty counts for something. Better than pretending to be perfect. Claire hesitated before showing hers. Daniel snatched it and read it aloud, his voice mocking. Oh, sweet little Claire, Daddy's comfort and mistake. Weak and sheltered. You think he meant you? That you were the loyal one? Claire's face flushed with humiliation. That's not what it says. It doesn't have to, Daniel sneered. Anna cut in sharply. This doesn't solve anything. It only makes it worse. She pointed to the final note, her voice rising. Loyalty. That's the key. Which one of us was loyal? Certainly not you, Daniel shot back, writing him angry letters and demanding money. Anna's eyes blazed. And you, running off to gamble and drink his savings away? Don't talk to me about loyalty. Then maybe it's Claire, Daniel said, his tone mocking again. The little angel who never lifted a finger against him, except for whatever truth she ran from that he never forgave. Claire's eyes filled with tears, but something inside her hardened. Maybe none of us were loyal, she whispered. Maybe that's the point. Her words silenced them, but only for a moment. The fight resumed, sharper, crueler than before. Trust shattered further, every word another fracture in the fragile glass of their relationship. Yet deep inside, Claire felt something shift. Mrs. Whitaker had said their father trusted her with the papers. And the note about loyalty, was it possible he had left the real key hidden somewhere else, waiting for her to find it? That night, long after Anna and Daniel had stormed off to their rooms, Claire returned to the study. She lit a single lamp and opened the journal again, setting it beside the letters. She noticed, for the first time, that a section of the journal's spine was slightly loose. With trembling hands, she pried it open. Inside, hidden within the binding, was a small, folded piece of paper. She unfolded it, her breath catching. It was her father's handwriting again, but this time the words were unmistakable. The one who finds this knows the truth. The rightful heir is the one who can see past anger, past greed, past weakness. The one who seeks understanding, not power. If you are reading this, then you are her. Claire's heart pounded. Her father had left the answer not in the will, not in the letters, but hidden, waiting for the one who would search deeper. Tears blurred her vision as the weight of it settled on her shoulders. She was the one, or at least, he believed she was. But how could she tell Anna and Daniel? How could she reveal this without destroying what little remained between them? And even worse, what if they refused to believe her? Claire kept the folded note hidden in her dresser drawer, tucked beneath sweaters she rarely wore, but its presence felt like a burning coal in the room. Every time she looked at Anna or Daniel, guilt pressed on her chest, though it wasn't guilt alone, it was fear. She had the truth, or at least what her father had declared the truth, but telling them would mean war. Days passed, the three of them circling one another like predators too tired to strike, yet too angry to retreat. Anna grew colder, her words clipped and rehearsed as though she were preparing arguments for a courtroom rather than speaking to her siblings. Daniel, meanwhile, drank more heavily, wandering through the house late at night, muttering under his breath, sometimes laughing in the dark, sometimes shouting at shadows. Claire felt the tension stretch tighter and tighter, waiting for the inevitable snap. It came on a stormy evening when rain battered against the windows and wind howled through the chimney. The three of them were in the dining room, eating a dinner that tasted of cardboard, when Daniel slammed his glass down and leaned forward, his eyes bloodshot. "I know one of you has something more," he said, his voice slurred but steady enough to carry weight. "That journal, those letters, they weren't the end. He was too clever for that. He left something else." Anna's fork froze halfway to her mouth. "And what makes you so sure?" Daniel smirked. "Because Mrs. Whitaker told me." Claire's heart lurched. "You saw her?" "Yesterday," Daniel said, his grin widening. "Ran into her in town. She thought she was being careful, but she slipped. She said Father told her only one of us would find the truth. Only one. That means it's already been found." His gaze shifted between them, finally locking on Claire. "And I think I know who has it." Claire's breath caught, panic flickering across her face before she could control it. Anna noticed, her eyes narrowing. "What is he talking about, Claire?" "Nothing," Claire said quickly. "He's drunk. He doesn't know what he's saying." But Anna's expression hardened. "No, he's right. You've been acting strange since those letters. And Whitaker gave you the papers first. What did you find?" Claire shook her head, tears stinging her eyes. "I can't." "You can," Daniel snapped, slamming his hand on the table. "Or we'll tear this house apart until we do." The storm outside seemed to echo the storm inside. Anna stood, her chair scraping loudly across the floor. "Show us," she demanded, her voice trembling not with fear but fury. "Show us what you're hiding." Claire ran. She didn't think, didn't plan, just bolted from the table and up the stairs, her siblings' footsteps pounding behind her. She burst into her room, yanking open the dresser drawer, but Anna was there in an instant, shoving her aside. The note fluttered to the floor. Daniel snatched it before Claire could reach it. He read quickly, his lips curling into a sneer. "If you are reading this, then you are her," he quoted mockingly. He turned on Claire, waving the paper in her face. "So that's it. Daddy's little princess wins again. He left it for you?" Anna grabbed the note from his hand, scanning it with wide, furious eyes. This can't be real. He wouldn't choose you. He wouldn't." Claire, trembling, whispered, "I didn't want you to see it like this. I didn't want it to destroy us." But Anna's face was twisted with rage, years of suppressed rivalry boiling to the surface. "Destroy us? You already have. You should have told us the moment you found it. Instead, you kept it, planning to use it against us." "That's not true," Claire cried. "I only wanted to understand." Daniel's laughter was bitter, hollow. "Understand? There's nothing to understand. He chose you. That's the end of it. And we're left with scraps." He crumpled onto the edge of the bed, his shoulders shaking, whether from rage or despair Claire couldn't tell. Anna, however, wasn't done. She held the note like it was poison, then ripped it in half, then into quarters, letting the pieces scatter across the floor. "There," she said, her voice cold as stone. "Now it means nothing. Just ink and paper. The will says equal shares, and that's all that matters." Claire stared at the shredded paper, her heart breaking. "You can tear it up, but that doesn't change what he wrote." Anna leaned close, her voice a whisper sharp enough to cut. "Maybe not. But without proof, it's just your word. And I don't trust you." The room fell into silence, broken only by the storm outside. For the first time, Claire felt truly alone, not just grieving her father, but mourning the bond with her siblings that seemed irreparably shattered. Over the next few days, the collapse accelerated. Anna and Daniel formed an uneasy alliance, united only by their resentment of Claire. They spoke in hushed voices, fell silent when she entered the room, locked doors that had never been locked before. Claire tried to reach them, to explain, but they shut her out. Once, she overheard them talking in the kitchen, their words muffled but sharp. "We can't let her have it," Anna said. "Father's words don't change the law. The will is what counts. But if she pushes this, then we push back," Daniel finished darkly. "She won't take everything from us." That night, Claire sat alone in the study, staring at the journal, now more a curse than a guide. She remembered her father's words, "The one who sees beyond anger, beyond greed, beyond weakness." Was she really that person? Or had she already failed by letting her siblings' hatred consume her? The journal gave no answers. The pieces of the note lay in a wastebasket upstairs, but its meaning lingered like smoke after fire. By dawn, it was clear the collapse was complete. The inheritance, once a promise of unity, had become a battlefield. The journal, once her father's voice, had become a weapon. And the siblings, once bound by blood, were now bound only by suspicion and betrayal. The storm that had broken them never truly passed. It lingered in the house as a heaviness in the air, an unspoken threat in every room they entered. Anna and Daniel continued their alliance, brittle but effective, while Claire drifted like a ghost, unwelcome and watched. The equal division of the estate, which should have been simple, stalled. Papers remained unsigned, possessions unsorted, decisions postponed. None of them dared leave for long, afraid of what the others might do in their absence. Every conversation circled back to the journal, to the note that Anna had torn to pieces but that none of them could erase from memory. It was only a matter of time before the fragile arrangement shattered completely. That moment came when Mr. Edwards, the lawyer, returned to the house with additional documents requiring signatures. He spread them out across the dining room table, his calm voice explaining the details, but the siblings weren't listening. Their eyes flicked not to the contracts but to each other, suspicion glowing like embers. Finally, Daniel spoke, his tone edged with venom. "What happens," he asked the lawyer, "if someone produces new evidence? Something that suggests father wanted things divided differently?" Mr. Edwards frowned. "If such evidence exists, it would have to be proven authentic and legally binding. Otherwise, the official will stand. Even if it's his handwriting?" Daniel pressed. "Even then," Edwards replied firmly, "a personal note or journal entry cannot override a notarized will." Claire's chest tightened. Daniel was baiting her, daring her to confess, to reveal the secret note he already knew was gone. Anna leaned back in her chair, her expression unreadable, but her silence spoke volumes. Claire realized in that instant that her siblings had no intention of letting her walk away with anything more than an equal share. They would rather burn the house to the ground than acknowledge her father's hidden choice. When the lawyer left, the fight erupted. "So it means nothing," Anna said flatly, her eyes on Claire. "That note, those words, you built a lie out of them." Claire's voice trembled but held firm. "I didn't build anything. He left it for me. He wanted me to find it." Daniel laughed bitterly. "Then why didn't he put it in the will? Why hide it in a journal?" "Because even he knew it was just words. He knew you weren't strong enough to deserve it." The word struck like a slap. "Don't you dare," Claire whispered, her hands shaking. "I was the only one who tried to understand him." Anna slammed her hand on the table. "Enough. We've been circling this like vultures for days. If you truly believe you were the rightful heir, Claire, then prove it. Show us how." The challenge hung in the air, impossible and cruel. Claire's eyes filled with tears. "I can't prove love. I can't prove loyalty. Those aren't things you put in a ledger." Daniel sneered. "Then you have nothing." Something inside Claire broke. She rose suddenly, her chair toppling backward, her voice raw. "You want proof? Fine. He trusted me enough to leave his last secret in my hands. Not in the will, not in letters to you, but in a place only I would look. You think that means nothing? Then maybe you never really knew him at all." Her words echoed through the dining room, silencing them for a moment. But Daniel's face twisted with rage. "If you don't hand over whatever's left, if you don't give us the whole truth, we'll make sure you walk away with nothing. Not the house, not the land, not even your equal share. We'll fight you until you're ruined." Anna said nothing, but the cold determination in her eyes told Claire she agreed. Claire's breath came in ragged bursts. "You'd destroy me? Your own sister?" Daniel leaned close, his voice low and venomous. "You stopped being our sister the moment you decided to keep that note for yourself." Something inside Claire snapped. She lunged for the journal, snatching it off the sideboard where it had rested since the lawyer's visit. She held it to her chest like a shield. "This is all we have left of him," she cried. "And you're turning it into a weapon." Daniel grabbed for it, but she twisted away. Anna stepped forward, her hand reaching, not violent but insistent. "Claire, give it to us." "No," Claire said, her voice rising. "I won't. Because it's not about the will, or the land, or the money. It's about who we are now. And if we destroy each other, then maybe none of us deserved him." For a heartbeat, silence fell. Rain battered against the windows. The journal trembled in Claire's hands. Then Daniel struck, his hand ripping it away with brutal force. Pages tore, fluttering to the floor like wounded birds. Claire screamed, diving after them, but Anna stepped between them, grabbing the fallen pages and clutching them tight. Her face was pale, her eyes wide, as she scanned the words. "Wait," Anna whispered. "There's more." She held up a page none of them had noticed before, tucked between later entries. Its ink faded but still legible. She read aloud. "The one who finds this may believe she is the heir. But loyalty is not found in secret notes or hidden words. Loyalty is proven when it costs something to keep it." The three of them froze, the weight of the words sinking in. Claire's triumph crumbled into confusion. Daniel's rage faltered into uncertainty. Anna lowered the page slowly, her eyes meeting theirs. "He was testing us," she said quietly. "Even after death. He wanted to see what we would do with what he left." The room felt like it was closing in, the walls pressing tighter. Claire's knees buckled, and she sank to the floor, clutching scattered pages. "So it was never about me, or either of you. It was about all of us." Daniel shook his head, his voice hollow. "No," he said, "one. Only one." But even he sounded less sure now. The siblings stared at each other, three broken pieces of a family, each one desperate to claim a legacy that now seemed like smoke slipping through their fingers. In that moment, they understood. Their father's true will was not written on paper but carved into the choices they made now. And the cost of loyalty, real loyalty, was about to be tested. The silence after Anna's discovery stretched like an eternity, each of them holding their breath, waiting for the other to speak, as if a single word might ignite everything again. Claire sat on the floor surrounded by torn pages, clutching them as though they were fragments of her father himself. Daniel stood rigid, fists clenched, his jaw tight, eyes darting between his sisters and the faded ink. Anna, still holding the paper that bore their father's cryptic message, looked older in that moment than she ever had before. The storm outside rattled the windows as though the house itself was listening to their father's final riddle. "So what now?" Claire's voice cracked, soft, nearly swallowed by the rain. "What do we do with this?" Anna lowered the page slowly, her fingers trembling, her expression somewhere between sorrow and exhaustion. "He didn't choose one of us. He was watching all of us. And now," she looked at Claire, then at Daniel. "Now he's still watching." Daniel's laugh was sharp, bitter. "No, that's convenient for you, isn't it? Turn it into some moral lesson about unity, about sharing." "But he said one. He meant one." Claire shook her head, rising to her feet. Her hands were ink-stained from clutching the pages, her eyes swollen from tears. "You don't understand. He was telling us the truth, that inheritance isn't about paper or property or who gets more. It's about what we choose when it costs us everything. And right now, all we're choosing is hate." Daniel turned on her, his anger boiling over. "You don't get to stand there and preach after you hid that note, after you made yourself the victim, the chosen one. You played us, Claire." "I didn't play anyone," she shouted, her voice breaking. "I was desperate to hold on to him, to believe that he saw me, that I mattered. Maybe I was wrong, maybe I twisted his words, but I wasn't trying to hurt you. I was trying to belong." The weight of her confession filled the room. For a moment, Daniel faltered, his rage dimming into something more fragile. Hurt, grief, the ache of a boy who had never truly believed his father loved him enough. But just as quickly, he masked it again. Belonging doesn't win houses. Belonging doesn't pay debts. He gestured around the room, at the portraits on the walls, the heavy furniture, the land stretching beyond the storm. "This is what matters. This is what's real." "Is it?" Anna's voice was steady now, her tired eyes fixed on him. "Because look at us, Daniel. Look at what this has done. Father's gone, and instead of mourning him, instead of remembering the man he was, we've torn ourselves to shreds over what he left behind. If this is what matters, then maybe none of it was worth anything." Daniel stared at her, stunned by her words, but the fury didn't leave. It only simmered deeper. "So what? We just hold hands, forgive each other, and walk away? Split everything neatly, and pretend we didn't spend weeks plotting against each other?" His voice dripped with sarcasm, but beneath it was a raw desperation, as though he couldn't bear the thought of letting go without a fight. Claire stepped closer, holding out one of the torn pages toward him, her hand shaking. Maybe that's exactly what we do. Maybe that's the only way to pass his test. Daniel didn't take it. His jaw tightened, and his eyes glossed with a wetness he refused to let fall. "You're both fools," he whispered. "You think words can heal this? You think he left us anything but poison?" He turned abruptly, shoving past them, storming out of the dining room. The slam of the door echoed through the house like a gunshot. Anna closed her eyes, the tension in her shoulders sagging. Claire stood frozen, her outstretched hand still holding the torn page. The storm outside seemed to mirror the turmoil inside, every gust of wind rattling the glass like a warning. Hours passed. Daniel didn't return. The sisters sat in silence, piecing together the journal, smoothing the torn pages, trying to reconstruct their father's words. It felt almost sacred, like stitching together a wound that could never fully heal. By dawn, the rain had stopped, leaving behind a heavy, damp stillness. Claire stared out the window at the gray horizon. "Do you think he'll come back?" Anna didn't answer right away. She folded the last page carefully, placed it back into the leather cover, and closed the journal. "He'll have to decide for himself," she said at last. "We can't choose for him." Claire nodded, though her heart ached with the knowledge that Daniel might never forgive them, or himself. When the lawyer returned later that week, expecting signatures and decisions, he found the sisters calm but hollow-eyed. They signed the papers without argument, dividing the estate equally. The journal remained with Anna, locked in a drawer neither of them spoke of again. Daniel never came back to the house. Rumors reached them in fragments. He sold his share quickly, moved away, cut ties. He didn't attend holidays, didn't answer calls. It was as if the family fracture had swallowed him whole. Yet for Anna and Claire, the journal lingered like a ghost, a constant reminder that their father's final gift had not been wealth or land, but a question that would haunt them forever. What does loyalty cost? Claire often lay awake at night, replaying his words, wondering if she had failed the test or passed it in ways she couldn't yet understand. She imagined her father watching, not with pride or disappointment, but with a weary recognition that even after death, his children carried the same burdens he had. On the first anniversary of his passing, Claire returned to the house alone. She stood in the quiet dining room, touching the table where they had fought, where Daniel had torn the journal apart, where Anna had read his hidden words. The silence was unbearable. She whispered into the empty air, "I hope I chose right." No answer came, only the creak of the old walls and the sigh of the wind through the trees. But in her heart, she felt both the weight and the freedom of knowing that some questions could never be answered, only lived. The inheritance had been divided, the papers signed, the possessions scattered, but the true legacy remained, fragile, invisible, and unresolved. Perhaps that was her father's final will, not to give them closure, but to leave them with the burden of choice, the knowledge that family could be both a gift and a curse, and that loyalty, when tested, was never simple.